From ashes to purpose, the transformative power of grief. Welcome to the BlackCEO Podcast, where we explore the extraordinary journeys of individuals who have turned adversity into triumph. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that touches every single one of us, yet one we often struggle to discuss openly, grief. But this isn't just another conversation about loss. No, today we're going to challenge everything you thought you knew about grief and reveal how it can become a catalyst for profound personal growth and societal change. Our guide on this transformative journey is the remarkable Tracy Dancy, a woman who has not only navigated the darkest depths of grief, but has emerged as a beacon of hope and healing for countless others. Tracy's story is one of unimaginable loss transformed into a mission that's changing lives and reshaping our understanding of grief itself. Before we dive in, let me paint a picture for you of the impact Tracy is having. Imagine a world where grief isn't a taboo subject whispered about in hushed tones, but a powerful force for positive change. A world where those who are hurting find not just sympathy, but a pathway to purpose. This is the world Tracy Dancy is creating, one heartbeat at a time. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Another talk about grief? Really? Trust me, I get it. Grief isn't exactly a topic that makes you want to lean in and listen closely. It's heavy, it's uncomfortable, and let's be honest, most of us would rather scroll through cat videos than confront the raw reality of loss. But here's the thing, grief is as universal as breathing. It's a part of the human experience that connects us all, transcending race, class, and culture. And yet, we're spectacularly bad at dealing with it. We fumble, we avoid, we try to get over it as quickly as possible. But what if I told you that by doing so, we're missing out on one of the most powerful catalysts for personal growth and societal change? That's right. Today, we're not just talking about enduring grief. We're talking about harnessing it, transforming it, using it as rocket fuel to propel us towards a life of deeper meaning and purpose. And who better to guide us on this journey than someone who has walked through the fire and emerged not just intact, but illuminated. Tracy Dancy's story begins with a loss so profound, so earth-shattering, that it defies description, the loss of a child. Now, I want you to take a moment and let that sink in. For many of us, the mere thought of losing a child is enough to make our hearts constrict with fear. It's the kind of loss that makes you question everything, your faith, your purpose, the very fabric of existence. And yet, from this unimaginable tragedy, Tracy has forged a legacy of hope and healing that's touching lives across the globe. She's the founder of Soaring on Angel's Wings, an organization that's redefining how we approach grief and loss. But more than that, she's become a living, breathing testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of grief. Now, I can almost hear some of you shifting uncomfortably in your seats. That's great for her, you might be thinking, but my grief is different. My loss is too big, too raw. There's no way I could turn it into something positive. I get it. Believe me, I do. Grief has this way of making us feel utterly alone, trapped in a bubble of pain that no one else can possibly understand. But here's where Tracy's message becomes so powerful, so revolutionary. Your grief, in all its uniqueness and intensity, has the potential to become your greatest strength. Let that sink in for a moment. The very thing that's brought you to your knees could be the force that propels you to heights you never imagined possible. Sounds impossible, right? Well, buckle up, because we're about to challenge everything you thought you knew about grief, loss, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Let's start with a radical idea. What if grief isn't something to get over, but something to grow through? Our society has conditioned us to view grief as a problem to be solved, a phase to be moved past as quickly as possible. We have our neat little stages of grief, our prescribed mourning periods, our platitudes about time healing all wounds. But Tracy's journey reveals a profound truth. Grief isn't a linear process with a clear endpoint. It's a transformative journey that, when embraced fully, can reshape our entire existence in powerful and unexpected ways. Now, I know what you're thinking. Embrace grief? Are you crazy? I'd do anything to make this pain go away. And that's a completely natural reaction. Our instinct is to run from pain, to numb it, to do anything we can to escape it. But what if, by doing so, we're actually short-circuiting our own growth and healing? Tracy discovered that by leaning into her grief, by allowing herself to fully experience the depth of her loss, she opened herself up to a level of healing and transformation she never thought possible. It's like the old saying goes, the only way out is through. But here's where it gets really interesting. Tracy's journey didn't just lead to personal healing. It ignited a purpose so powerful, so compelling, that it's changing lives on a global scale. And this, my friends, is where the true magic of transforming grief into purpose lies. Imagine for a moment that your grief is like a seed. Right now, it feels hard and unyielding, buried in the dark soil of your pain. But with the right care, with patience and nurturing, that seed has the potential to grow into something beautiful and life-giving. This is what Tracy did. She took the seeds of her grief and instead of letting them wither in the darkness, she nurtured them with courage, compassion, and an unwavering belief that her pain could serve a greater purpose. And from those seeds grew Soaring on Angel's Wings, an organization that's providing hope and healing to countless individuals struggling with loss. Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, that's great for Tracy, but I'm not looking to start an organization. I'm just trying to get through each day. And that's absolutely valid. The beauty of transforming grief into purpose is that it looks different for everyone. Maybe for you, it's about becoming a more compassionate friend or colleague. Perhaps it's about advocating for a cause close to your heart. Or it could be as simple as learning to appreciate the small joys in life with a depth you never knew before. The point is, your grief has the potential to make you a more empathetic, more authentic, more fully alive human being. But let's be real for a moment. This isn't easy work. Transforming grief into purpose isn't about slapping a happy face sticker on your pain and calling it a day. It's about diving deep into the messiness of your emotions, confronting the hard truths, and emerging on the other side, not unchanged, but profoundly transformed. Tracy's journey is a testament to this. She didn't wake up one day and decide, well, I'm done grieving, time to start an organization. No, her path was filled with tears, with doubts, with moments of darkness so profound, she wasn't sure she'd ever see the light again. But here's the thing. It was in those moments of deepest despair that the seeds of her purpose began to take root. It was in wrestling with the why of her loss that she began to glimpse the what now. And it was in reaching out to others in their pain that she began to find healing for her own. This brings us to a crucial point. Transforming grief into purpose isn't a solitary journey. In fact, one of the most powerful aspects of Tracy's story is how it highlights the importance of community in the healing process. In our individualistic society, we often feel pressure to handle our grief on our own. We put on brave faces, we say we're fine when we're falling apart inside. We isolate ourselves thinking we're sparing others from our pain. But in doing so, we rob ourselves and others of the profound connections that can emerge from shared vulnerability. Tracy found that by opening up about her loss, by creating spaces where others could do the same, she tapped into a wellspring of collective healing. There's something incredibly powerful about looking into the eyes of another person and seeing your pain reflected back at you. It reminds us that we're not alone, that our grief doesn't make us broken or unlovable, but deeply, profoundly human. But here's where it gets really interesting. When we create these connections, when we allow ourselves to be seen in our grief, something magical happens. We don't just find comfort for ourselves, we become a source of comfort for others. Our pain, the very thing we thought made us weak or unworthy, becomes a gift we can offer to the world. This is the alchemy of grief transformed into purpose. It's taking the heaviest, darkest parts of our experience and transmuting them into light for others. It's realizing that our wounds, when shared with compassion and vulnerability, can become sources of healing, not just for ourselves, but for everyone we touch. Now, I can almost hear some of you thinking, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do this? How do I take this mountain of pain I'm carrying and turn it into something meaningful? Great question. And the answer, like most important things in life, is both simple and incredibly challenging. You start where you are with what you have. Maybe you're in the early stages of grief where getting out of bed feels like climbing Everest. That's okay. Your purpose right now might simply be to survive, to take each day one breath at a time. And you know what? That's incredibly powerful. Because by choosing to keep going, even when it feels impossible, you're sending a message to yourself and to the world that your life has value, that your story isn't over. Or perhaps you're further along in your journey, starting to feel glimmers of hope again. Your purpose might be to reach out to someone else who's hurting, to share your story, to let them know they're not alone. It might be to volunteer for a cause that's close to your heart or to create art that expresses your journey. The key is to start small, to be patient with yourself, and to remain open to the possibilities. Remember, Tracy didn't set out to create a global organization. She simply started by acknowledging her pain, by refusing to let her loss be the end of her story, and by being willing to connect with others in their grief. And here's a powerful truth. As you begin to move towards purpose, as you start to use your grief as a catalyst for growth and connection, you'll find that it doesn't diminish your loss. Your loved one isn't any less gone. The pain doesn't magically disappear. But something profound does happen. Your grief begins to take on meaning. Instead of being just a source of pain, your loss becomes a wellspring of compassion, of depth, of wisdom. You start to see the world through different eyes, noticing the pain in others that you might have missed before. You develop a capacity for empathy that can only come from having walked through the fire yourself. And here's the really beautiful part. As you lean into this new purpose, as you allow your grief to shape you into a more compassionate, more authentic version of yourself, you honor the memory of what you've lost in the most profound way possible. You ensure that their impact on the world didn't end with their passing, but continues through the love and light you bring to others. Now, I want to address something important here. When we talk about transforming grief into purpose, it's easy to fall into the trap of toxic positivity. You know, that idea that we should always be looking on the bright side, that every cloud has a silver lining, that everything happens for a reason. Let me be crystal clear. That's not what we're talking about here. Transforming grief into purpose isn't about denying the reality of your pain or pretending that your loss was somehow worth it for the growth you've experienced. It's not about forcing yourself to be happy or grateful when you're falling apart inside. No, transforming grief into purpose is about acknowledging the full depth of your loss while also refusing to let it be the end of your story. It's about honoring your pain and your loved one by allowing their memory to fuel a life of meaning and impact. Tracy's journey exemplifies this beautifully. She doesn't pretend that losing her child was anything less than devastating. She doesn't try to put a positive spin on her loss or suggest that it was somehow meant to be. Instead, she acknowledges the ongoing pain of her grief while also choosing to use that pain as a catalyst for change. This is a crucial distinction because it allows us to hold space for the complexity of grief. It recognizes that we can be heartbroken and hopeful, devastated and determined all at the same time. It gives us permission to have bad days, to fall apart, to rage against the unfairness of our loss, while also moving towards a life of purpose and meaning. And here's something really powerful. When we approach grief this way, when we allow ourselves to be authentic about our pain while also reaching towards purpose, we create space for others to do the same. We challenge the societal norms that tell us to get over it or to keep our grief private. We open up conversations about loss and resilience that have the power to change lives. This brings us to another crucial aspect of Tracy's message, the importance of storytelling in the journey of transforming grief into purpose. By sharing her story, by being vulnerable about her loss and her journey towards healing, Tracy has created a ripple effect of hope and healing that's touching lives across the globe. And here's the thing, your story has that same power. Yes, you, the person sitting there thinking, but my grief isn't special. My loss isn't unique. Your story, in all its messy, painful, beautiful complexity, has the power to change lives. Why? Because when we share our stories of grief and resilience, we do more than just recount events. We offer others a mirror in which to see their own experiences reflected. We provide a roadmap for those who are lost in the wilderness of their own pain. We remind others that they are not alone, that healing is possible, that life can be beautiful again, even after devastating loss. But sharing our stories isn't just powerful for others, it's transformative for us as well. When we give voice to our grief, when we allow ourselves to be seen in our pain and our healing, we reclaim our narrative. We move from being passive victims of our loss to active authors of our own story. This act of storytelling, of meaning making, is at the very heart of transforming grief into purpose. It's how we begin to make sense of the senseless, to find patterns in the chaos, to weave the threads of our loss into the larger tapestry of our lives. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I'm not a good storyteller. I don't know how to put my experience into words. Here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to be a poet or a public speaker to share your story. Your story is powerful simply because it's yours. Maybe your storytelling takes the form of quiet conversations with friends. Perhaps it's through art or music or dance. Maybe it's in the way you live your life, the kindness you show to others, the causes you champion. Whatever form it takes, your story has the power to heal, to inspire, to create change. As we near the end of our time together, I want to circle back to something I mentioned at the beginning. Remember how I said that grief is as universal as breathing? Well, here's where that becomes really important. In a world that often feels divided, grief has the potential to be a great unifier. It crosses all boundaries of race, class, gender, and culture. It reminds us of our shared humanity, of the fundamental fragility and preciousness of life. And when we learn to transform our grief into purpose, when we allow our losses to fuel our compassion and our drive to make a difference, we don't just heal ourselves, we contribute to the healing of the world. Imagine a world where every person who has experienced loss channeled that pain into purpose. A world where our shared experiences of grief became bridges of understanding and connection rather than walls of isolation. A world where our losses, instead of diminishing us, became the fuel for profound personal and societal transformation. This is the world Tracy Dancy is working to create. And it's a world that each of us has the power to contribute to, starting right now, right where we are. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge, a call to action that has the potential to change not just your life, but the lives of countless others. First, I challenge you to be honest about your grief, to give yourself permission to feel the full depth of your loss without judgment or shame. Remember, your grief is a testament to your capacity for love. It's not something to be rushed through or hidden away, but a powerful force that, when embraced, can lead to profound transformation. Second, I challenge you to remain open to the possibility of purpose. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to find meaning in your loss or pretending that everything happens for a reason. It simply means staying curious, staying open to the ways in which your experiences, even the painful ones, might be shaping you into a more compassionate, more authentic version of yourself. Third, I challenge you to share your story in whatever way feels right for you, whether it's through conversations with friends, through art, through volunteering, or simply through living your life with intention and compassion. Remember, your story has the power to heal, to inspire, to create change. And finally, I challenge you to look for opportunities to support others in their grief, to be the person who isn't afraid to sit with someone in their pain, who knows how to listen without trying to fix, who understands that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply show up and say, I'm here. You're not alone. Because here's the truth. We are all in this together. Every single one of us will experience loss. Every single one of us will know the weight of grief. But we have a choice in how we respond to that reality. We can let our grief isolate us, diminish us, define us, or we can allow it to connect us, to deepen us, to transform us. We can use it as a catalyst for growth, for compassion, for meaningful change in our lives and in the world. Tracy Dancy chose the latter. And in doing so, she's not only honored the memory of her child, but she's created a legacy of hope and healing that will ripple out for generations to come. You have that same power within you. Your grief, your loss, your pain, it's not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where your wounds become sources of wisdom, where your tears water the seeds of compassion, where your heartbreak becomes the catalyst for profound personal and societal transformation. So I ask you, how will you choose to write this next chapter? How will you allow your grief to shape you, to deepen you, to fuel a life of purpose and impact? What story will you tell with your life? The world is waiting for your answer. And I, for one, can't wait to see the beauty and healing that will emerge as you transform your grief into purpose. Thank you for joining me on the Black CEO Podcast. Remember, you are not alone in your grief. You are seen, you are heard, and you have within you the strength not just to survive your loss, but to use it as a catalyst for profound transformation. Until next time, keep living, keep growing, and keep allowing your pain to fuel your purpose. In the words of Tracy Dancy, you can rise, you can soar, and most importantly, you can live again. Not just in spite of your grief, but because of it. The world needs your story, your compassion, your purpose. So go out there and shine your light. The world is waiting.